Hi, I'm an old guy and I do maths. Today we are looking at my very first video on probability trees. This is where we start. I get asked a lot of questions about probability trees and they're fairly straightforward, I think, but there are a few things that need to be explained. So today we're going to look at the basic structure of them. Now, if you're looking at this, you've probably encountered probability trees in class and maybe you've got a few questions. So let's just start with the simplest probability tree that we could have, which is one where there are two possible outcomes. And we're going to pretend that it is concerning the toss of a coin. And you can either get a head or a tail. The probability of getting a head, assuming that the coin is fair, is 1/2. The probability of getting a tail, assuming the coin is fair, is 1/2. And these probabilities for this event, which is what it's called, is the total probabilities add to 1. Getting a head is called an outcome. Just as getting a tail would be. That would be an outcome. And the probability of that outcome is 0.5 or 1/2. The probability of this outcome is 0.5 or 1/2. And so that is how this is drawn. And what this records is the event of tossing a coin. Two possible outcomes. Now, let's say we have two coins to toss. Well, we can copy what we had up here down onto here. The outcome here is a head, and the probability is 1/2. And the outcome here is a tail, and the probability is 1/2. And this, which I will just sort of section off with a dotted line, if you can see that, is the record of the event of throwing one coin once. So what is this? Well, this records a second event, a second one of these, where the outcome is possibly a head or a tail, and the probabilities are the same. So we toss a coin once, we get an outcome. Let's say that we get a head. Then we decide to do a second toss. Now, assuming we got a head the first time, how we illustrate this sequence of events is we join another one of these to the point here, which is where we got a head. And so if you follow up the line of this tree diagram, what you see here is that you have an outcome of two heads, which can be written like that. Head on the first throw, head on the second throw. Here we have a head on the first throw and a tail on the second throw, and that's written like this. Down here we have a tail on the first throw and a head on the second throw. Down here we have two tails. Tail on the first, tail on the second. Now, because these are independent events, and an independent event is something that, for instance, the result that I got here has no influence on the result I got here, so they're independent events. One does not influence the other. Because these are independent events, the probabilities in here don't change. It's always a half and a half. Now, if we want to work out what the probability of getting ahead and then ahead is, all we have to do is multiply the probability of the first by the probability of the second, and what we get is we get 1/4. We have a probability of 1/4 of getting ahead followed by a head. And there's a certain logic to this. If you look at the possibilities that you can get from 2 tosses of a coin, what you'll see is that only 1 out of the 4 is a head and then a head. And that's how you set up a simple probability tree for something like 2 tosses of a coin. It's how you assign the probabilities. It's how you write the outcomes. And this will be the same calculation all the way down here. It is how you calculate the probability of getting a head and a head, or a head and a tail in that order, or a tail and a head in that order. Now, there's one other thing to say. Hopefully it became obvious that as you move across a probability tree, you multiply the probabilities. Now let's say, and this will be the last part of this video, let's say that you wanted to know what the probability of getting a head and a head is, as well as the probability of getting a tail and a tail. So it's a head and a head, or a tail and a tail. Now, the tail and the tail is the same probability as the head and the head. But we want to know what the chances of getting either this or this would be. And in order to calculate that, we add these 2 probabilities. And so the chances of getting 2 heads or 2 tails is 1/2. So, as you work down through a probability tree, at the end of the probability tree, and you're tasked with either finding something like this, or checking that you got all the probabilities right, I'll deal with the first of those first. When you're tasked with doing this, you select the probabilities and you add them. If you want to check that you got everything right, the total of all these probabilities should add to 1. And we can see here that that will be 1/4, that will be 1/4, that will be 1/4 for these reasons, and that will be 1/4, and 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1. That is correct. Okay, that's it for this introduction to probability trees. We're going to move on from here on other videos. We'll get into conditional probability, we'll get into probability where there is more than 2 options, there's more than a binary choice, and we'll look at all of those. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.